4 p.m. and I got the thumbs up, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I know we only have about an hour together. We can go over a little bit. So I was practicing last night. I've never chaired a co-meeting before, but I'm going to do my best to incorporate Robert's Rules of Order. Before I turn it over to Madam Chair, I just want to say just thank you. Thank you for everyone that has advocated to make sure that we continue to have joint council and school board meetings. I know it's been a priority for a long time, and getting 16 plus people plus staff to get together is a lot of calendars, but I'm glad that we're able to make it happen. Most importantly, glad that we're able to do it on a regular basis starting next year. The three things, I sent out an email to council this morning, but I know we do not have a lot of time. I know everyone already prepared, so we can probably go a little faster through the slides to ensure that we have some dialogue and some discourse between all members. And with that, I will turn it over to Madam Chair. Ma'am.
Great. Thank you. Yes, we are very, very excited to be meeting. It has been a moment for us to get to this meeting, but that does not mean the work has not been done. And I just appreciate this council, and I just needed to be able to say that to you publicly and directly, that I just really know how hard it is to care for a city and have a school board that thinks that schools are the only thing you have to worry about. We appreciate you making us feel that we are important and that the students and the families of our city are. So I believe we do have a quorum to go ahead and get started, Mr. Mayor. So I will turn it back over to you or to our speakers.
Perfect. Why don't we go ahead and start with the first item being enrollment trends. Over to the speakers. And as the superintendent comes up, I think what we're going to do is let's, after each subtopic, let's ask the questions there. I'll make sure we're good on time. That way we're not bogged down. So over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. And I would just really like to say it's a pleasure to be here today as we come together for this important discussion about Newport News Public Schools. I said earlier, am I tall enough? Is it close enough? On behalf of our students, educators, families, I really do want to extend a sincere appreciation to the members of City Council, the school board, and the community as well for your continued commitment to education and to student support. So this meeting is not just about sharing information, it really is about collaboration, because I believe that the strength of a city and the school division are directly connected to each other. When we invest in our students, we invest in the future workforce, we invest in the economic vitality of Newport News and the well-being of our entire community. We all have a shared responsibility in ensuring that every student in our district has access to resources and opportunities that they need in order to thrive. Tonight, we will discuss key topics that impact our schools, from enrollment trends and staffing to academic achievement and strategic planning. And again, these are not just numbers and policies, they represent real students, families, and educators who really are counting on all of us to make informed and thoughtful decisions. So by working together, we can ensure Newport News Public Schools continues to be a place where students are supported, challenged, and prepared for future beyond the classroom. So we are going to start with our enrollment trends and talk a little bit about the factors that shape our student population. So again, we're going to talk a little bit about enrollment trends, and as you can see on this particular slide, our fall enrollment is down a little bit, and I'm just going to go on record to say across the country, enrollments in public schools are down. So we are not an anomaly by any means. Last year we had 26,000, as you can see on the graph, 26,216 students. As compared to this year, we have a total of 25,929 students. That means we are down by 287 students. Many people come up to me and say, oh my gosh, you're down by 1,000 students, you're down by 2,000 students. We are down by 287 students as compared to last year. We have 41 schools. So if we were going to average it, it would average out to 7 students a school. Obviously, it doesn't work out that way. We may have lost 2 third graders at one school and 5 third graders at another school. We do not know. It doesn't work that way. So this chart represents all of our students. So the total number of students, as I said before, is down by 287 students. But again, it crosses grade levels. So it's not just one particular grade level. It's not just one particular school. And most schools have a slight dip in it. When we look at fall enrollment, we capture it as a whole, and then we also capture it in 3 ways. So we have students who are accessing the general curriculum, meaning most people say our general education students. That number is slightly down, but when we look at our students that are receiving special education services as well as English language learners, those numbers have increased. So if you take a look at that, general education is 19,000, a little over 19,000. Students with disabilities are 3,600 currently, but that number continues to climb literally every day. And then our English language learner population is a little over 2,500 students. Some of the key factors that we believe, as we've done a little research, we've talked to different people, we believe have impacted our enrollment fluctuations are the economic circumstances such as job losses, new employment opportunities when people move. They often influence parents' decisions to move out of the area or into the area. Housing development, gentrification, they also impact enrollment, as well as magnet options. So while those students remain in our school division, if they're zoned for Warwick High School, for example, they may opt to fill out an application to attend Woodside High School and be a part of that magnet. So while the number may have gone down at Warwick High School, it doesn't impact the overall school division enrollment. Additionally, across the country, there's been a decline in military families because as many people are not joining the military any longer. We used to have a large number of students coming from the military. That number is still high, but it is slightly decreased. Shifts in immigration patterns and, of course, changes in the birth rate. We do work with a company that does the predictions, and they have predicted that birth rates have gone down. They will continue to go down for a little while. But understanding these factors helps us to anticipate our student enrollment needs, and it helps us to make our informed decisions about resource staffing.
And so, ma'am, I think that's the end of the enrollment trends. So we're gonna pause there, and we'll alternate between the board. So
Okay.
We'll start with City Council. Are there any questions from enrollment trends from City Council? Because I have one, but just want to make sure that we don't have any.
Mr. Mayor, as a point of order, the Vice Mayor, I believe, is available on Teams to participate.
Okay.
If we want to take a vote to allow him to participate remotely, we could.
Got you. Say we need a vote to, okay. So I think as a quick reminder, last council meeting that we voted on a remote participation. The Vice Mayor had his first child. Congratulations this week. And so he will be participating via remote. So do I need to make a motion?
You're seeking a motion from council.
Yep. So from City Council, is there a motion to let him participate remotely in this time?
So moved.
Second.
Move to second and call the roll, please.
Councilman Coleman,
4.
Councilman Ely,
4.
Councilman Harris,
4.
Mayor Jones.
4.
Councilman Long.
4.
Councilwoman Vick. 4. Vice Mayor Bethany.
4.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. I just have one question. When it comes to the enrollment trends, I know that we're down about 200. I guess the question that I have is, when you look across schools, are there any schools that are in danger of reaching a threshold of we have to potentially looking at closing or consolidating? Is that a threshold that's even within the margin of error for any of the schools?
That is a great question, and Mr. Mayor, I will say I had 2 more slides.
Okay,
but
no worries.
That's okay, but I'm
Okay.
going to answer your question.
Great.
And those are slides that we can come back to after the rest of our presenters if we have time.
Okay.
I would say no, and let me share with you why. And Mr. Fairhart, if I missed something, feel free to step in. We have more schools that have portable classrooms than we have schools that don't have portable classrooms. So even if our enrollments continue to go down slightly, those students that are currently taking classes in a portable classroom. That's the nice name for it. We used to call them trailers. They would simply be able to move into the building. So I would say no, we are not at this point, and we're not even close, even with the decline and having the portable classrooms. No, we're not close. And I'll give you an example as to why. If I'm a student with a disability, I may be accessing my instruction through a special education teacher in this classroom, but now I also am accessing English and math from a general education teacher. So I'm now going to another classroom. So in essence, it's almost like that student counts in 2 seats. So no, I do not believe that we are in a situation where we would need to close the school.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I did have a question. I know you had the charts with the ESL students. Do you have a chart that shows the number of military students?
I did not include it in this presentation, but I certainly can get that to you, to City Council, yes.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to yield the rest of my enrollment time to my colleague. I can certainly share that information with you at another time. At this time, Dr. Kip Rogers, our Chief Academic Officer, is going to come to you and talk to you a little bit about our academic achievement and our roadmap to where we are going.
And as he comes up, just as a reminder, I know this has been perhaps the largest topic is not only do we say it in the state of the city, but what are some things that we can do to, by the year 2030, make sure that all of our schools are accredited. And I know I sent out to City Council earlier this morning all of the schools in Hampton Roads, where they are, some with conditions, some with not. So it's just a good map to see where certain schools are and where certain schools aren't. So,
very good. Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. Thank you, Mayor Jones, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, Chairwoman Searles Law, as well as the school board members. So this afternoon I will share briefly our academic roadmap for success, and I'll highlight some intentional strategies that we're making toward measurable progress that we're making in Newport News Public Schools. And we certainly share this collective commitment to ensure that 100% of our schools are what was referred to as fully accredited. The language has changed slightly, and I'll share a little bit about that in a minute, toward making sure that all of our schools are where they need to be. So, that being said, the Virginia Department of Education has implemented a new accountability framework that separates accreditation from accountability. So instead of being accredited, there are now 4 designations for schools, the first of which is distinguished, the second is on track, the third is off track, and then the fourth is needs intensive support. The approach that we're taking now emphasizes mastery as well as growth, and it ensures that every student focuses on student success, every school focuses on student success as well as readiness. And our goal, as Mayor Jones mentioned, is to move 100% of our schools to either on track or distinguished. So the new framework does place a heavier weight on student growth alongside achievement, and it ensures that fair evaluations of our schools serving diverse communities, and it focuses on continuous improvement or change over time. And I'd like to provide just a high-level overview of our strategic planning on how we're working towards meeting that goal. All right, first, we have 3 documents that guide every piece of work that we do in our school division. The document on the left is our learner profile, and that document is meant to inspire and motivate our staff, and it outlines the knowledge, skills, and attributes that our students need in order to be successful after they leave Newport News Public Schools, and it identifies 7 key attributes that we want them to have. The middle document is our strategic plan, Journey 2025, and we are in the process of working on Journey 2030. And that's our plan that focuses on student success, wellness, workforce excellence, partnerships, and resource stewardship. And that's our commitment to each other and as well as to the community to ensure that every student has the opportunity to succeed and thrive in our community. And then the last one, which is where we probably place most of our time, that's where we place action that's associated with our strategic plan. And that document just operationalizes our vision through very specific actions, like strengthening Tier 1 instruction. That's the first time students are taught prioritizing literacy, as well as data-driven decision-making. And then lastly, fostering a very supportive environment for both staff and students. And together, those three documents guide all of our work in Newport News Public Schools. And more specifically, every staff member and every student knows what these three things are that we're focusing on throughout the school division. That's Tier 1 instruction, evidence-based literacy practices. Many of you all may be familiar with the Virginia Literacy Act, and that's where that work is grounded. And then creating strong culture and climate for all of our students. I pushed it twice. I have to wait. This one. All right. So in order to ensure that those priorities are realized, last year the Department of Teaching and Learning, we adopted a philosophy of being wildly consistent across all grade levels, and that's making sure that we have tight alignment between curriculum, instruction, and assessment, and taking a very consistent approach on how that's done. So that graphic, you'll see it on T-shirts, it's on walls, is something that we've really adopted throughout the course of our work. We've also taken a four-pronged strategy in order to meet our goal of having 100% of our schools meeting on track or distinguished status. The first of which is strong Tier 1 instruction. The second is evidence-based interventions, and that's expanding our targeted supports for all of our students to include students with disabilities as well as our English language learners. And we probably spend most of our time on data-driven decision-making. We look at data weekly, and more importantly, we make decisions and we respond to data weekly to make sure that we're being successful with our students. We review it, discuss it, and act on it, not only at the school level, but at the division level as well. And then lastly, we spend a lot of time and effort and resources investing in our grown folks who work with our young folks, professional development, on coaching in order to strengthen their instructional capacity. We have new teachers, we have seasoned teachers, we have guest teachers, we have associate teachers. We have a lot of people that we have to invest in on a daily basis. So that's the four-pronged approach that we're taking. Now, what do we use to measure our effectiveness? Our key performance indicators are our SOLs, our standards of learning. And of course, we also look at growth measures. The new accountability system looks at change over time. So that's why we look at data on a continual basis, and we make changes that are associated with that. We also review the reduction in our achievement gaps, looking very closely at our students with disabilities and, again, our English language learners to make sure that those students are getting exactly what they need. And then thinking about the end in mind, we take a close look at our college and career readiness indicators, and that's making sure that our students have certifications and that they're taking upper level coursework to be successful with whatever they choose to do after they leave Newport News Public Schools. Now, I do want to point out that we do have several schools in our division that are meeting expectations and certainly exceeding them, but I wanted to share just an example of how growth has been impacted in our schools within the last year and a half. We have 4 schools that were identified by the Virginia Department of Education for their progress. Huntington Middle School is one, and Katherine Johnson is the other that I'm extremely proud of the work that they've been doing and have been acknowledged for continuous improvement as well as overall academic achievement, albeit not to the degree with which we'd like. Nevertheless, they have been recognized by the state. And we're also proud to note that we have been making upward trends in all content areas, and which reflects our commitment to excellence. We continue to exceed the state average in graduation, and we continue to come in under the dropout rate. So we are certainly poised for progress. One of the things that we've been doing that I'm extremely proud of is strengthening our magnet academies and specialty programs. We have an advanced learning design team that started meeting early in the fall in September, and their goal was to strengthen our magnet academies and specialty programs, and they've done a fantastic job with that. So our students have lots of opportunities to be successful in stretching what they're able to do in regular, normal education. So I do want to lift out specifically that we have 2 programs that are starting within the next year or two. Next year and then the following year. We have MESA, which is our Maritime Engineering and Environmental Studies Academy. that will begin in the fall. We've already started working with that. That's a partnership with Old Dominion University. It's a lab school, and then the following year, we plan to start our STEAM program with Huntington Middle School, and that work has already begun with our team led by Mr. Darrell Pankratz, who is our Executive Director of Secondary Teaching and Learning. All right. So what we need from City Council is just to continue to support having conversations like this where we can talk about the resources that are needed as well as the progress that we're making. What I can share academically is because we look at data and act upon it regularly, we are seeing literally double-digit gains in common assessments as compared to last year. So for example, Newsom Park had a 26% increase in the assessment, the second quarter assessment in science this year as compared to the same assessment that they took last year. And that's just one of many stories that we have to tell in terms of the progress that we're making. So thank you for the opportunity to share, and I'm open to answering any questions that you might have.
Thank you. We'll rotate, so I'll let Madam Chair take over if there's any questions, comments, or concerns from the school board. Ma'am.
So I want to thank you for the presentation because even though we're on the board, we get to honestly see our bright spots. So thank you for articulating them well. Any other comments from board or city council? Yes.
I got a question. Okay, all right. Over the last 2 years, one thing the city council were implementing is a benchmarking, and what our KPIs, we're tying the programs to those KPIs, so that way we see KPI moving in a positive direction, we know that the programs are working. And I think part of that is part of making sure we have an efficient budget. So I see that you have it data-driven. Is the school board doing the same thing to make sure the programs that are in place are actually moving us in a positive direction? So you can determine, do we need that program, or do we need to put more money toward the program so we can move faster to a full accreditation?
Madam Chair, would you like me to, or would you like to?
Let's have you go ahead and answer.
It's a great question. So I've only been back in Newport News about 1.5 years, and one of the things that I was able to do was to leverage a study that was conducted about 1 year prior to my coming that outlined pretty much just what you said relative to curriculum instruction and assessment. And actually that document has been driving much of the work that we've been doing. We just had a meeting today during our senior staff meeting where we are embarking upon our strategic planning process for Journey 2030, where we will create, just what you said, a benchmark system to take a close look at our existing programs to determine for the future, for the next 5 years, which can we consolidate and which can we add, which do we need to remove. Part of the function of the Advanced Learning Design team was to take a close look at our 16 academies and programs and magnet programs in elementary, middle, and high school and make some determination on what is and what is not working. And that's been a fantastic opportunity to determine which can we consolidate. So for example, at Heritage High School, they have university magnet where it's designed for students to be able to earn their associate's degree prior to their graduating. There have been some gaps, and we've had an opportunity to kind of think about what that looks like in the future. So part of MISA, the conversation with that lab school, is to do just that. So yes, the short answer to your question is we do look at our programming and make some determination on whether or not to tweak it a little bit to meet the needs of our students. And that will be absolutely a process of the Journey 2030 strategic planning.
And Dr. Rogers, if I may add, you spoke a little bit to it in the beginning. When you first came on board, you did use the study that had been done.
Correct.
And we literally stopped midstream and switched out our curriculum to make sure it was aligned with the state standards.
Correct.
And we were able to see some significant gains based on that change.
Okay, do we have any additional questions on academic achievement?
Request for the floor.
I think it was a device, I
I
think,
think
on.
we got Vice on.
Yes,
Vice
can you
Mayor?
hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Mr. Rogers, can you go back to that KPI slide, please? And although I might not be able to see it, if you go to it, okay, yes, it's pulling up now. enrollment, I was curious, is enrollment not, and that's just total number of students, is that not a KPI that you all focus on for any reason?
I'm sorry, you said for any reason?
So, in my mind, right, I thought based on how many students you have enrolled, right, the state, whatever calculation or whatever formula there is, the state will give you funds based off of that number. So, period, I guess I just don't see anything as far as enrollment numbers. And I was curious if there was a reason why that wasn't a KPI that you all felt like was important to have. You get what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. I think for the purposes of my section of the academic portion, that I would not have included the enrollment per se for student achievement. So I'll defer to Dr. Mitchell.
Right. That's a great question, but I will add, Mr. Vice Mayor, that we run the numbers. We have a report that is run on a monthly basis in terms of our enrollment. So we discuss our enrollment data on when we have senior staff. We discuss that on a bi-weekly basis. We look at all of the trends. We also have used that trend data to reach out to families that are homeschooling, because their homeschool application comes through us. So we do monitor the enrollment data on a regular basis. We've been able to reclaim, if you will, quite a few parents from homeschool. We've also been able to reclaim some families that had previously been with some other virtual learning options. So we do monitor that data on a regular basis.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have one quick, well, hopefully it's a quick question. Is it safe to say that Newport News Public Schools serves the most special education students and English learning students on the peninsula?
That is I would be happy to take that. That is an unequivocally yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So then my follow-up with that would be is when the state is doing accreditation and this new accountability system, how is that weighted?
It is not at all. Our students with disabilities are weighted equally to a tag student, to a student who's taken the AP class. And I will go so far as to say some of our wonderful students that are high school level students that are bedridden and nonverbal, they are weighted exactly the same. I will say that their assessment for that population is different, but for the majority of our students that have a disability, they take the exact same assessment and they are weighted the exact same way.
And most recently, ELL students have only 18 months to pass their
Assessments.
their assessments.
Their English proficiency.
Yeah, their English assessments. And that was a change from almost twice the amount of time for them to be able to do so. So that's a new metric that we're dealing with right now.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Madam Chair. Sir, could you go back to the new accountability system slide? Sure. I know I'm being mindful of time, but probably just two questions on probably the most important part of this discussion. So I know we're moving from level 1, 2, and 3 to this distinguished, on track, et cetera.
Yes.
So I know currently we have 17 schools that are with conditions. Are those 17 schools going to be off track, or are some of those split to on track?
The goal is to keep them all on track and move toward distinguished. So right now, I don't think we lose any schools. Is that correct? So
Yeah.
we would probably be, actually, I think my hope is, and hope is a strategy, that we'll be able to shift based on the new accountability measure because of growth. We'll be able to shift some of those schools that were not, all of our schools are accredited, some of them with conditions, some of them not. Those that are accredited with conditions would be able to shift, we should be able to shift some of those.
So 17
on track.
to 12 maybe, or 13-ish?
Yeah, I can get exact numbers because we did some predicting based on our current data if we would apply the new accountability system to determine which schools would move over to the next level. My hope is that we capture some of our schools that have been challenged under the existing system, but that's the hope. Mayor, I'm just being honest with you, my goal is to get them by next year.
That's
So,
right.
100%.
And that has always been the goal.
The reason I ask is just as I was prepping last night, and I looked at this thing, we have amazing schools, and the 17 that we want to move to fully accredited.
Sure.
I figured some of those would be on track with the new methodology. So let's say we'll take the 17 schools. We'll say there's 13 schools
Right.
that still need to that need more support. Left and right lateral limits.
Right.
I think as we look at 2030,
Right.
we can't just say in 6 years they're all going to be accredited. So I'd imagine there's going to be some sort of actions and milestones in the middle, and would love maybe the manager and the superintendent to sort of work toward those.
Sure.
Not that something needs to be tied to each one, but a 6-year goal in my mind is just too far. Would love to see yearly goals. That way that all sort of feed into 2030. Because
Sure,
talking to the
we have
chair,
those. And
2030 is good, right?
We have
Right,
those
it is
in
good.
individual schools
We
through
do.
school improvement plan. What I will share,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's widely known, that we had 5 schools that missed full accreditation without condition by 5 or less students in
Okay.
science. So,
Okay.
to your point, I feel confident in saying that we would pick up at least 5 of those schools that did not meet accreditation. All of our high schools, with the exception of 1 for attendance. So I think, many of our schools that did not meet full accreditation, did not meet full accreditation without conditions, are very close. So it's not that they are significant milestones that they have to make in order to get there. And, because of the work that we've been doing and watching data and setting goals and targets, that I feel confident. I want to underpromise and overdeliver.
Of course.
So, yeah. So,
That's all I have, ma'am.
And I would just like to add, as Dr. Rogers spoke earlier about the changes we have made instructionally, and as you know, quality instruction is directly tied to student behavior or misbehavior.
right.
When students are engaged, you see less misbehavior. So we are proud to say that our discipline numbers have decreased because of the quality of instruction that our teachers are providing. So we are really happy to be able to share that.
So one of the preliminary conversations that we're having are what resources are needed to get us to 2030, and identifying the schools that are needed to get over the line. There are things such as support for family engagement, because those are the kinds of supports that those schools are actually missing to help them get where they go. But this collective board comes at this problem from very different lenses, and so that conversation is going to be quite rich as we figure out what we need to do for those remaining schools.
Can I ask a question? That the family engagement piece, is distance from the school a part of that factor, or is it just not engaged because they're not willing to be?
I would say it's not the distance. We've offered to transport families by bus, and some families will take advantage of that, but it's not the distance. And we recognize that sometimes parents are working 2 jobs and may not be able to be engaged in the traditional sense, but there are other ways that they can certainly be engaged.
Any further questions on academic achievement? Okay, are we ready to hear from our speaker on CIP overview? CIP overview.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to thank the City Council and the School Board for the opportunity to present this evening. I'm going to give you a funding overview of items related to our capital improvement and infrastructure. So I'm going to start with the School Construction Assistance Program, and then I'm going to walk through the Facilities Master Plan, our Capital Improvement Plan, and also some resources that the school division has available to the public. Thought it would be important to talk about some state funding opportunities that we've been provided an opportunity to compete for. We'd like to, in advance, thank the city for their cooperation in submitting applications for these grants. We received $21 million for the construction of Huntington Middle School, which is about 30% of the project cost. And then in the second round of applications, we received $2.1 million for the safe and secure entrance at Yates Elementary School. And that's a project that we're funding with CIP money that was afforded to the school division in FY24 from the city. We're going to use the reimbursement from the Yates Safe and Secure Entrance to complete some of the smaller safe and secure entry projects throughout the school division as we are able to do so. And then lastly, the General Assembly, excuse me, provided $1.5 million for safety and security upgrades, specifically for Rich Neck Elementary School. And I think it's important for us to talk about the state funding because you as local elected officials were important in lobbying our state officials and making this opportunity available to us, and we encourage you to continue to do so if you're so willing. So talk about our framework. Just want to remind everybody about our master facilities plan, and that was a process that began in the fall of 2021, actually prior to my arrival with the school division. We partnered with a third-party vendor, Cooperative Strategy, a national firm that specializes in capital improvement planning and facilities planning. The school board adopted the plan in August of 2022. The priorities you can see are listed there for your reference. Safe and secure entrances, deferred maintenance, renovations at Warwick and Denby High School, replacing portables. Mayor, to your question, to Dr. Mitchell, we have approximately 90 classrooms in portable units across 26 sites throughout the school division. Renovation of computer labs and enhance and invest in our current programs. And I think what you'll see as we follow, and hopefully you've noticed in the past 2 fiscal years, is the projects that we fund with money that's provided to us from the city are directly from our facilities planning committee and from the facilities master plan. And then I'd like to thank the members of our facilities planning committee. We met on a regular basis. Some of you have been a part of that process and have attended the meetings, and we appreciate you doing so. Mr. Michael Leach is our community co-chair, and we work to plan the agenda and advocate for the resources necessary to support the infrastructure needs of the school division. So moving on to our recent capital improvement plans. This is FY 25-29. As the board approved, and you can see in fiscal year 25, the request was for $141.9 million. The big items, obviously HVAC and roof replacements, and then the renovation at Warwick High School, safe and secure entrances you'll see on there was $12 million, and then bus replacements at $7.9 million, and the reason for that is simply the cost of buses has increased dramatically over the past couple of years, and we simply can't buy as many buses as we used to be able to with the $2 million. So the city approved capital improvement plan for 25-29 is as follows. We were awarded $2 million for school bus replacement, $10 million, which I'll show you how we plan to utilize that on my next slide, and then $2.8 million for the design of the renovation for Warwick High School. Would also like to acknowledge the city while I'm up here that they did provide us with an additional $3.1 million in cash capital, which we greatly appreciate. $2 million of that was for our one-to-one computer initiative, and the other $1.1 million helped with salary for our staff and clear backpacks. So the projects that we intend to complete with the $10 million that we were afforded, the Media Center HVAC at Heritage High School, safe and secure entrances throughout the school division. If we're able to save some money there combined with the money we received from the School Construction Assistance Program from Yates Elementary School, we hope to have some residual money from Menchville High School. That's our biggest project left in regards to safe and secure entrances. And if you're at all familiar with Menchville High School, you know where the central office is located, so bringing that to the front of the building is going to be a pretty large undertaking, and we'll be able to repurpose the office space for instructional purposes. Our biggest project here is the replacement of the HVAC at Booker T. Washington. That's $5 million. And then the design for the safe and secure entrance at Menchville High School is $400,000. We have $1.1 million in restroom renovations, and then $2 million for buses. And then again, the design for the Warwick renovation is $2.8 million. So the plan that was approved for FY26 through FY30 is before you now on this slide. The big additions were the Denby High School renovation. That's for Denby High School. That's a renovation and design combination, and that totals $58.8 million. The Menchville, we did add the biggest The biggest addition in HVAC is for Metro High School. We did include approximately $16 million for a new HVAC unit at Metro High School, just based on its current condition and how long that project or that school could be out in the CIP process. We felt it was important for us to address that sooner rather than later. And then we do, if you'll notice at the bottom, we do have $2 million in there for our one-to-one initiative, which was, again, afforded to the school division this year through cash capital from the city. The total for FY26 is $22.1 million, and then the 5-year total is $370.9 million. This is just a recap of the major projects that are in the request for FY26. You can see it's the construction of Warwick High School, design and renovation, construction at Denby, safe and secure front entrances, and those are the smaller projects. If you've been to Crittenden Middle School or Hilton Elementary School recently, it's some storefront, some windows that we can put in to make the entry more secure for our students, faculty, and staff, and then HVAC replacements and roof replacements. This one is messy, but I'm just you can look at it at your leisure. This is our 5-year plan that was adopted 26 to 30, and this just shows you how we intend to utilize those resources over that time span. I'm just going to click through the next few quickly. We'll spend some time here. Just wanted to emphasize that the school division did use $31.8 million for HVAC replacement from our ESSER funds, and we maximized the amount that we could use on capital. If you're aware, the funding we received has some restrictions on it in regards to what could be used for capital and what couldn't. So the school division, in my opinion, did a great job, and we maximized those resources to address some of our HVAC needs. These next slides I'm just going to have for your awareness. These are the age of our HVAC systems, roof systems, our bus fleet, and then this is what the replacement costs in the years that we would typically replace moving forward. And you can see the cost of the buses as of March 2024 are below, about $163,000 for a regular 71 passenger bus, and that's a propane bus. I'm proud to say we do have the largest propane bus fleet in the Commonwealth, and we've just recently installed propane tanks at the reservoir lot and also down at Newsom Park. So we have a propane distribution site at all 3 of our lots. And then you can see how much a 65 passenger bus with a lift on it, and that's to support the needs of students with disabilities. And you can see also, and I failed to mention this, all the buses we purchase from this point forward will have air conditioning. And then lastly, I'd like to just, for everybody's knowledge, on our website we have a direct link to our master plan. If you're not familiar with that and you would like to see that, it's there. Capital Improvement Plan dashboard, and what we do there is we take, as we complete projects, we update the public. Each school has their own site. It has the age, the year, etc., and we identify the funding source. So we try to keep that up to date, and that's transparency for the public and how we utilize our resources from a capital improvement perspective. And then lastly, the Huntington Middle School, the next chapter. That's a monthly update that we provide after it's presented to the board at the monthly board meeting. We update the public on that site as well, and we archive that on a monthly basis. So with that, I will take questions, comments, discussion.
At this time, Councilman Long.
Yeah, so this question is pertaining to that gap between what schools are asking for capital improvements versus what the city has allotted. It's around about $240 million, is looking at the numbers. When we're looking at Denby renovation, and we're doing Warwick High School renovation too as well, have we considered looking at capacity of these high schools? Because, I've always heard Heritage High School is only half capacity. I saw where we were declining some enrollment trends amongst Mitchfield as well as at Heritage as well. But when we're looking at the renovation, could we look at, or have y'all considered looking at expanding the capacity of the, like Warwick High School, and absorbing the enrollment numbers in Denby High School amongst the remaining high schools there in the city?
So I'll answer your question in several ways, and then I'll certainly defer to the board because I think that's a conversation or decision that the board would drive. But what I'll say to you is, in regards to capacity at our high schools, Heritage High School is the only high school with capacity. We have 10 modular units, 10 modular classrooms at Warwick High School, which is included in our renovation proposal. So we're actually not increasing capacity. What we're doing is we're eliminating our temporary capacity solution for a permanent long-term solution. So your question about should the school be bigger, I think that's a conversation for the collective bodies to have, because of course that's going to cost more money. We have modular units at Denby High School. So from a capacity standpoint, really the only school that we have space at the high school level would be Heritage High School. And I don't know that it's enough to support a combination of schools, et cetera. In fact, I can stand here before you and say it's not.
I think that the only comment that I have is, one, thank you for the presentation. I do think between the council and the school board, I think we need to do a better job of aligning the time of our CIPs. I know sometimes we both, it feels like, this is the third time we've done this together. It feels that sometimes we independently both do our CIPs. I know we have the 5-year projection, right? We independently do it, and then we sort of come together in the springtime, and there's a delta, and then we try to, not haggle, we try to figure out how to do the delta. I think if we can find ways at the staff level to come together earlier, when we're, baking the pie, I think that will help a lot of the, not confusion, but just ways for us to get closer to the number originally, instead of, month 3 or month 4 trying to figure it out.
Okay, I'll make sure we get some of those dates on the calendar so we're able to do that. Go ahead. You have that answer about the military. Okay.
Mr. Harris, you asked the question about the military. So I was able to get that information. So we currently have 2,827 students that are military connected, and it is down by 172 from last year. So when we have an overall of 287, overall 172 of those are military. So they may have been transferred out and more, are not coming. So then that would leave 115 students in terms of the difference that were not military between last year and this year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just have a comment.
Yes. Okay.
Just being able to hear the numbers today and look at the progress from, way back when we had a meeting that was joint, and to see that it's so much more solution-driven, and that is going to definitely put us in a better position as a city, because when we're making the programs, and even as you've been talking about, it does my heart good to see that so much money has been put towards the repairs before they get to the problem where they have to get replaced. Because I thought that was a huge problem in the past, that there were so many problems with the building before they had even gotten to the point for replacement. So I think that's a good thing, and so we're well on our way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or
I have
questions?
one question.
Yes.
How much federal funding do we currently receive?
What's it like?
Is
7%?
You got it?
that for construction?
Yes.
It's 7%.
None.
What do we receive federal funding for?
We can-
Where is Scarlett? Are you here?
Scarlett's back there.
Scarlett has the
And I have-
numbers in her head.
I have a number in my head, but
I have it in mine, too.
don't want to say it. I'm going to make sure it's right.
Mostly for special ed? I mean, the only reason I ask that question is
Mostly
because of
special ed.
everything that is going on right now. We have
Mostly
such
for
a
special
large
ed.
population of children in special education that we're serving currently, and yes, 30, you said 36 million? Yeah, that's a big number. And
It's like 7%.
if that gets cut, let's say by 20%, that could have a tremendous impact
That's right.
on
It will
whatever
have a-
we're going to be doing moving forward. So I just want to make sure that we've got that on the radar.
Those are areas that we collectively need to be, lobbying and bargaining on.
Absolutely.
Right,
Because,
the teachers
as you
are-
said, it's a large pot of money for a certain population, yet and still, we are still mandated to do specific things with that population. The class sizes are smaller. There are more staff that are involved with educating students with disabilities.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thank you.
bringing that out.
Yeah.
I think we're good, sir. I think next, I know and we can go a little bit past 5 if that's okay with a few individuals, but I do want to get to the city funding. Is that the next step?
Yes, it
Okay.
is.
So why don't we do the city funding and go from there?
Good afternoon, City Council and School Board. I'm pleased to stand before you again and remind you of the city's investment in our schools and the importance to the city. Since 2019, the investment of just direct local funding for operations has grown from $110 million to $123 million, which is a $12 million increase, or I believe it's 11%. So we also pay the school's debt service on projects. So while this slide shows a declining number in the green bars, that is because the city has chosen in the development of its CIP to recognize Huntington Secra as a public building and has dedicated the debt service for that combined site under city debt only. So the debt service that you see represented in the slide only represents the specific projects associated with renovations for the school buildings. So the increase between FY24 and 25 in local funding was $3.5 million. And I'm pleased to say that since 2019, the city has fully funded each superintendent's operating budget request. As Rusty just indicated, there's other funding that is supported to the schools by the city. It's a mixture of cash capital and other funding. The city has funded school bus replacements since 2010, and beginning in FY25 is now going to dedicate $2 million in cash capital funding to one-to-one technology replacement as well. So the big triangle is our beautiful Huntington Middle School. That's the city share of a $77 million project. Thank you again, schools, for finding $21 million in state grants to offset that cost. And the city will be, again, footing the debt service for that under our public buildings category. So, just a very quick reminder of our funding commitment.
Thank you, ma'am. I know the city council has seen these numbers before, so perhaps best if there's any questions from school board about CIP or how we sort of bake the budget, because I know it's budget time.
School board members, do we have questions?
Comment.
Comment, yes.
I just want to say thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. As I looked at the numbers before our meeting, seeing that since 2019, we've had, the 10% increase to this council sitting here right now. The majority, a lot of that has been in the past 3 years, to the tune of 5% and 5 to 8%, depending upon which year. And we do appreciate that. And we appreciate you asking us the questions of how you can help in this space for what we need for operating. We don't have that pie chart up here regarding how much of our budget actually goes to funding our teachers for benefits, salaries. It is a phenomenal lift, but we need the best. We do need the best teachers, and the surrounding areas need the best teachers too. So that's a big fight that we're in. It is what it is with the teacher shortage. So we do appreciate all you've been doing to help us stay afloat and be able to offer the best to our current teachers too, because our teachers here in the division have been with us a while, and it is great to be able to support them and to give them their just due. Board members, any additional questions, comments? Dr. Mitchell?
And Ms. Searles Law, I want to add, as you speak about our teachers are well-trained, and neighboring superintendents will come out in public and say, we try to hire teachers from Newport News because our teachers are well-trained. Well, in our most recent job fair, the tables are now turning where we are having teachers from local divisions that came to our job fair that signed on with us for jobs for next year. So we see the tide turning for us, and we appreciate the support that the city has provided to help us make that happen.
I'll do 2 comments and then open it up to if there's any. You want to go first, John?
No, Douglas had a comment.
Oh, I didn't see you.
Oh, yeah, just if we were at the point of making some closing comments.
Yep.
I wanted to, again, as was already mentioned, thank City Council for their continued support and for the support that we've enjoyed in the last 3 years. That has really made a big difference for our staff. And as well, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it's an acute need to hang on to staff, as was mentioned already, but as well, bus drivers is another acute need for us in a division. And we being a long, skinny city as we are, we depend heavily on our transportation to get the kids to and from activities and to school and various things of that nature. So it's really important. Those are areas that we, unlike other divisions, we really can't operate without having a robust transportation support. In terms of, in my opinion, areas where I would really love to see collaboration between board and council is it's been a critical need for us is in attendance. So we, I think, as a board and as a division, we create lots of consequences, and we do a lot of tracking of students, but creating some consequences, some tracking, and having some support community-wise to place some pressure on families to make sure that their kids are coming to school is going to be really important as we talk about making sure that our schools are accredited by 2030, because part of the accreditation framework is attendance. And so that's something that's a state law that we are compelled to compel students to come to school, but we don't necessarily have a lot of legal authority to make students come to school. So anything that council can do in that area would be very much appreciated. Secondly, was already mentioned on the work-based learning opportunities. That is another piece of the accreditation mix as well. So it's not just a nice to have in terms of having work-based opportunities. So as council, as you are recruiting companies and talking to them about being in Newport News and the opportunities that they bring in terms of jobs, having conversations about internships and experiences that our students can have in their companies is a real important piece of us making sure that we meet that accreditation target in 2030. And then lastly, I'll just mention about in the CIP, the HVAC piece. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe our HVACs are only designed to go about 15 to 20 years. It's kind of pushing it to the max. Okay, so everything that's above that 15-year mark, that's a critical piece where we would have, like a day like today, we would have to shut a school down if the HVAC went bad or went out. So staying ahead of those kind of critical needs, that really, if we have to shut a school down on a day like today, that's a real disruption to learning. We now lose a lot of learning time. We lose a lot of momentum, and people are working overtime to try to get things fixed. That becomes a big budget haul in terms of getting those repairs done. So as far ahead as we can get ahead of HVAC things especially, then that can mean a lot towards the continuous operation of our schools. Even if the schools aren't necessarily Taj Mahal, beautiful places, we can make sure that they stay running if we keep those HVACs in good working order and underage. Because I remember lessons learned from Huntington. That was really kind of the death knell of Huntington was the HVAC got so old and it broke and they didn't even make the parts for it anymore. And it was so much money to fix the HVAC that it was more money than than the building was worth, and we couldn't justify fiscally making that kind of investment. So we don't want to get to that point. So those would be the 3 areas that I would really harp on: is that work-based learning, attendance, HVAC, as places where we can really collaborate over the next couple of years and move our whole community forward.
Thank you. Other board members? All right, back to you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. I gotta make sure there's any safe ground. So, but before we leave, I just want to make sure that we codify certain things. So I think we've done an okay job in the past where I think it's like if you're in the north, talks to the north, south talks to the south. So I think with the chair and I know we talk frequently. I know the city manager and superintendent talk frequently. So what city council has done at our last retreat is we've assigned Councilman as our school board liaison, and we've created these council committees. So that's like the formal, we could always have the informal things that we're always going to communicate, but whether it's an earlier CIP, which I know we're going to talk about, Councilman Neely is the sort of rep for that. I would still encourage the different districts to communicate, but I think if we formalize and codify that relationship, that's just going to be a better way to do this. The second part, the most important part, is we would love to have at least one of these meetings. I would say two, but let's just start with one on an annual basis. What we found is if you just put it on the calendar and it's always something, then everyone always knows. So for City Council, we have our council retreats are in January and July, and it's just booked for like now until forever. So we would just love, before everyone gets up and leave, to figure out like what is a good time, because we don't know, when you meet, and I'm sure there's certain school things that we don't really track. What is a good time where at least once a year we always meet, and it can be more than an hour. It can be 2 hours, and hopefully some in closed session to talk about some real not concerns, but just things that we can do going forward. So I would just love if there's open mic, some thoughts about what is a good time for us to meet. I think what makes sense is usually on a day that's already a scheduled meeting, and then you just vacate or you don't have that meeting. But that's my thought. But over to you.
I think that's a great idea. Let me defer to the board. My comment would be we should definitely have a meeting that's at the end of the school year, so that you're able to see what your investment has done, ask some questions, and as we're planning over the summer, you can be part of that work. But board members, please chime in.
I believe we need to have a board meeting at least once a year, but at the end of the school year, but also listening to the mayor, it should be around when we start the budget for the city. So whenever that talk starts about getting your items and getting your planning for the city budget, we could be more in line, so we don't have this disparity at the last end. So I do agree that maybe after the school year is easier for us because we kind of know where the school's landed, but also in a time that will allow us to align our budget items with yours.
And I would also say we've recently created 3 council committees so that we can deep dive into certain things. Personally, I think we should meet twice a year, but I think if we meet once and then Councilman Ely and some and others meet like about budget, that works as well. I also agree with sometimes toward the end of the year. I know we start October. October, November is when we start really ramping up for the budget cycle. If that's too late, then maybe right when school starts.
I was just going to say, if we're looking at how the year went, usually we don't know that immediately at the end of the school year. So it might actually be a good fit for when scores and those sorts of things come out. Is that like September time frame? You guys are starting October. So that early fall might be a natural fit for both purposes.
And I did just charge Dr. Mitchell and Ms. Vento to figure out when we can accelerate the CIP talks. And I think that should actually be the second meeting. So.
Okay. So it looks like we're all toward the fall. I think the vice mayor is on. I think I heard.
Yeah. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
So I think going back to alignment opportunities, right? I know trying to meet annually is the goal right now, but I know, can the school board educate us on what committees they have? And we just launched our 3. But I believe that you already have a finance committee of some sorts. And the reason I'm asking is maybe during one of our committee meetings, there's an opportunity for us to align earlier on CIP stuff. Maybe that's the avenue that we can use. And I'm just throwing it out there for us to discuss.
I think that's a good recommendation. So we would look and see, I'll find out what the council committees are, and we'll look and see what board councils and how they align. Were you going to say something?
What committees do you all have currently?
Excuse me?
Do you all currently have committees?
Yes, we do. We have, gosh, you guys are going to have to help me. We have a policy committee, the budget committee. We have a lot of them that relate to the community. And as we've been talking today, I've been thinking that those are some that we probably need to connect with council on, so that you all are aware of those inputs in the city. But we also have on like our rights and responsibilities handbook, things that are germane specifically to the functioning of the school.
Madam Chairwoman, we've got the Facilities Planning Committee would be a natural fit probably
That would be
with
a
your
very-
capital, your CIP committee.
Yes, the one that's been mentioned several times in our presentation for facilities.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
That one would be really good for Alan.
Another committee would be the Newport News Education Foundation, and that committee consists of many of the local businesses in our area. And so when we're talking about finding jobs for students who may not, inclined to go to college, this is a blue-collar city, and so a lot of those jobs are blue-collar jobs that they can help us, get job placements and internships. So it's a very robust board, and we would love to have a city council member as part of that foundation board.
Yes, and I do think we should probably relate with Bob McKenna and just make sure that we have a school board member and, of course, city officials on the chamber for the same purpose.
Councilman Coleman's our Chamber of Commerce liaison.
Okay.
And also with the state legislators, because, well, I know we have the luncheon with Pat Finneran, but staying abreast of what's going on with the state, because they do have some legislation now about, as it pertains to getting funding for the schools throughout the state of Virginia, but of course we have to be at the table to get it here, so being able to stay abreast of that so that if it does come down the pipeline, we will be aware of it.
And thank you
Well,
all.
actually, if it gets approved, because there's something on the table now about being able to do 1% of the sales tax to
Yes.
be able to be generated for school funding, which we can hope that will pass to
So we will-
generate more revenue.
Also make sure that Pat Finneran does reach out to council. I know he's done that several times to just say, if you have the time to write a letter regarding this that supports schools, I want to thank you in the past for having done so, and then thank you for the future for doing so, continuing to do so.
Great. I think we're right at time, so I just once again want to say thank you for a school board and for all the staff work went into the presentations. We look forward to having that probably fall meeting sometime, as well as some of the committees getting together, as well as the liaisons. I don't have a gavel, but I think we stand adjourned. Thank you.